the radical, fundamental principles of freedom, rational self-interest, and individual rights. This is the Yaron Brook Show.
One, two, one, two, one, two, one, two, one, two, one, two. There we go. There we go. 1, 2, 3. All right. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. How's that? Are we're getting some sound? Yes. All right. Let's try that again. All right. Somebody turned one of the knobs off. That's not nice. All right, I guess we'll just call it a statist conspiracy to silence the voices of liberty and the voices of freedom on this amazing 4th of July. So sorry about that. Welcome, everybody, to the Yaron Brook Show. And thank you for joining me. Happy 4th of July. Happy Independence Day. I hope you're having a great time. I'm expecting we're going to have a lot of foreigners on the show today because I suspect that many of our American friends are out barbecuing or something like that. All right. And so anyway. Thanks for being here and trying to get. How does the sound? I'm just curious because obviously some of the settings are different. So just let me know. How the sound sound as we go along. All right. Yes, Alejandrina is complaining. No questions in the super chat. We haven't said anything, so nobody has any questions because I have to say something before that. Anyway, 4th of July, maybe one of my favorite holidays, certainly, I think the most important holiday of all of them. No, this is my favorite holiday. Why one of my favorite? This is my favorite holiday. It beats Thanksgiving. It beats Christmas. It beats them all because it's the most meaningful. It's more meaningful of all the holidays. It's a deeply moving holiday, and it's a deeply important holiday, and the understanding of what it actually symbolizes and what it actually means is so lacking in our world, but it is the crux of what is ailing the world, the lack of understanding of the 4th of July, the lack of understanding of the ideas behind it. We're going to talk about that, what it means, what it's about. I'm having a pretty quiet 4th of July. I don't know about you guys. Hopefully, you guys are celebrating. There will be fireworks, I'm pretty sure, in Puerto Rico tonight. I'll be able to see them all from basically my balcony, the balcony that one day we will do a show from. And we're going to go out and for dinner soon, and then hang out and watch the fireworks on the balcony. It's nice. The weekends are nice here because we don't have workers in the house. So those of you who follow the show regularly know that I'm in the midst of renovations, and there are workers outside pretty much every day, all day, working, making huge amounts of noise. So it's just nice to enjoy the quiet. Still don't have furniture other than in 2 rooms in the house, so that arrives soon, and I'm looking forward to getting back to normal. Action Jackson, 1776, nice amount, nice contribution. Please edit out that lack of lack of sound in the beginning, so we don't lose viewers later on. All right, let's see. What is the meaning? What is the purpose? What does the 4th of July actually represent? Why is this, I think, the most important holiday, and more so today than maybe ever before? And in many ways, the founding of America, which the 4th of July is a celebration of, it's really the founding of this country, is one of the greatest achievements in all of human history. Certainly, it is the greatest political achievement in all of human history. It is the crowning jewel, if you will, of the Enlightenment and the political ideas of the Enlightenment, the political ideals of the Enlightenment. It is the greatest achievement politically ever. It is the final recognition of the value of the individual. It is the ultimate recognition of the place of the individual in a social context. And it is the only example of a proper conception of the role of government in a society. And look, it took hundreds of thousands of years of human existence to get to that understanding, to get to the achievement that is the Declaration of Independence, that is the founding of this country, and is, what the country achieved following that. And one of the points that's important to make is the moral is the practical, and the achievement is a massively moral achievement, and the practical outcome is the richest, most successful, most prosperous society in human history. At least for as long as it kept to its founding principles. So, if you think about the history of ideas, if you think about the history of philosophical ideas, of the view of the role of man, the role of society, the role of government, what it's there to do, what it's there for, going back really to the birth of philosophy, to the birth of ideas, you got a constant struggle, a constant contest between various ideas, right? In Greece, there was already some semblance of the idea of that the individual had a voice in governing society, the birth of democracy as a consequence. But there was also a backlash against democracy as represented in Plato's philosophy and Neoplatonist philosophy that advocated for strong, wise rulers to tell the individual how he should live and what he should do with his life. On the other hand, there was Aristotle and his view that the individual was capable because he had a mind, because of his reason to rule himself. So there's always been these differences politically, and for almost all of human history, the idea that man needed to be ruled dominated. That man was incapable of choosing his own values, choosing his own fate, choosing his own path, choosing his own political leadership was possible. But that is not just true in the realm of politics, it's also true in the realm of epistemology, in the realm of knowledge. Can the individual be trusted to know anything, to know truth, to gain for himself knowledge of reality? Now again, the lines kind of divide between Plato and Aristotle. The answer is for Plato and those who followed Plato, and the answer is no. That truth is revealed to those who have special abilities, to those who have special training. Truth is achieved through some form of revelation. And of course, Christianity and all religions hold this, particularly Christianity, particularly Catholicism, where truth is revealed to man from God through ancient books and through his representative on earth. In the case of the Catholics, that would be the Pope. But truth is not knowable to ordinary human beings. It's not knowable to all of us as individuals without the guidance, without being shown by holy books, by mystical communicators with the other realm. Aristotle again offers an alternative. For Aristotle, truth is knowable to the individual through a method, an implicit scientific method. Observation of reality uses one's senses and using one's reason. And therefore, individuals can discover truth, can discover knowledge. Now, note that this has massive, massive implications for morality. And I promise we'll link all this up to the founding of America. All of this has massive implications. Best friend Hank, thank you. That's very generous. Massive implications for morality. If you can't know the truth, then how can you choose your own values? How can you choose your moral values? How can you guide your life? How can you determine the best path in your life? You're dependent on commandments, on people telling you how to live and what to live for, on ancient books, on, again, some kind of philosopher kings, mystical people that have access to some mystical revelation. They're the ones who get to determine what the values you should pursue, because what do you know? You're nothing, you're nobody. You don't have the tools, you don't have the ability to discover truth. Again, if the counter to that is an Aristotelian view that says, no, individuals have reason. Individuals can discover truth for themselves. Therefore, they can discover values for themselves. Therefore, they can live those values and they can live for themselves. They don't need commandments. They don't need authoritarian leaders. They don't need a pope or a king or people dictating to them what to value and how to live. So if you think about the history of knowledge, if you think about the Greeks and the combat between these ideas in Greece, well, it's clear that the mystical, altruistic, and authoritarian line of thinking that you could trace back to Plato won the day. It won the day through its influence on Christianity. It won the day through the elevation of Christianity and the dominance of Christianity over Western life from the fall of Rome onwards, really till the 18th century. So during that period, the line of thinking that says truth is through revelation, only some people can discover it, and therefore we must be obedient to those who have discovered it. You can't live your life for yourself. You can't live your life discovering truth for yourself because you have no access to that. And you must live for the tribe, for the king, for others, and the system of government most appropriate to guide you and to be able to do that is authoritarianism of some form or another. Fill in the blank. But Aristotle's ideas start penetrating the West slowly, starting with Thomas Aquinas, gaining momentum during the Renaissance, changing the culture all around. The ideas of that the individual has a mind that can discover truth, the individual has the ability to choose his own values, and the individual has the necessity to be free, and that the appropriate political system is a politics of freedom. Those elements slowly, starting with kind of the epistemology, moving on to the ethical ideas, slowly start penetrating Western Europe from the Renaissance on. And it's a glorious time. It's a truly glorious time. From the sculpting of Donatelli's David, the kind of the first, what's considered the first sculpture of the Renaissance, to the beautiful paintings of the early Renaissance. You can start seeing human beings looking back at you from the paintings, not ghosts, not monsters, but human beings. You start seeing heroes being presented in sculpture, individuals, not just monoliths as part of just the crowd, the masses, but individuals now coming out of marble, coming off of the canvas. You start seeing the beginnings of science. Galileo, Leonardo da Vinci. And this movement that is really a movement about reality, about reason, about the individual, and ultimately, not yet, but ultimately about freedom, is a movement that is growing slowly throughout Europe during the 16th and 17th centuries. And this movement really achieves its apex intellectually during the 18th century. During the 18th century, thinkers start putting it all together philosophically, putting it all together in the way they live their lives. And what you see is a boom in ideas, in philosophers, in writings, all promoting the ideas of human reason. You see in parallel a scientific revolution, a flurry of scientific activities whether it's mainly in the United Kingdom, but really all over Europe, new scientific discoveries, and the willingness to take those scientific discoveries and apply them to technology and to build things and to make things. So you're seeing an epistemology, if you will, the rise of an entire generations committed to reason, at least to their understanding of reason, committed to science, committed to truth. Investigating, researching, studying. It's no accident that this era is called the age of reason and the age of science. But it's also an age of individual awakening, of individuals starting to believe that they can pursue their own lives. Because if, as I've said many times in my talks, if you could figure out the laws of physics, if I can understand Newton's laws, then why can't I choose my own profession? People forget that back then you didn't choose your own profession. You were basically did what your father did and what his father did and what his great father's fathers did. Why can't I choose my own profession? And we started the breakup, the beginnings of the breakup of the guild. And people pursuing their own values for the first time since Greece, since Rome. People started thinking, if I can use my mind to understand the world, understand science, choose my own profession, what about choosing who I marry? This is the beginning of an era where people start choosing for themselves who to marry. Arranged marriages start declining. It's an era of liberation of the human spirit, liberation of the human mind. And if I can use reason to understand the world, then what need do I have of those ancient books? What need do I have of these people pretending that they get revelations from above? It's an era of questioning religion, an era of challenging ancient truths, supposed truths, of challenging authorities, challenging everything. Why are kings kings? Who picked them? How did they get to be kings? And if it's the divine right of kings, where is this God who has made this king a king? I don't see it. And since I can't use my reason to see it, I don't buy it. And why are these kings? Why are these authorities? Why are these people in place telling me what I can and cannot do, where I can and cannot go, what kind of activities I can and cannot engage in? Why do I need their permission? And why do they have arbitrary power over me? Why do they get to decide how I run my life? Now think about an era in which people are asking these fundamental questions and coming up with, for the most part, pretty good answers. I mean, it's hard to imagine in the day in which we live, where people don't ask fundamental questions, where people try to evade the fundamental questions. To imagine an era in which this is going on. And of course, it's easier to ask these questions in a land maybe that's a little bit further away from the centers of authority, in a land whose inhabitants are, in a sense, self-selected people who are more on the side of adventure, more on the side of risk-taking, in a land of, adventurers, which was what the American colonies were. They'd come to what was mostly a wilderness to escape, and often to escape religious intolerance. But many times they came to America for the adventure. They came to America to establish themselves. They came to America for the opportunity. And here in America, they embraced these new ideas of the age of reason, these new ideas of the age of science, these new ideas of the age of enlightenment. At least a minority of them, an important minority of them, were well-read, sophisticated thinkers. Many of them, like Franklin, dabbled in science. And these ideas of the Enlightenment, and we talk about the Scottish Enlightenment, the French Enlightenment. If you think about the founding fathers of this country, they were incredibly well-read men. They read across the literature of the era and of the past. And slowly, a sense of a consensus arose. Now, they didn't agree on a lot of things. There was a lot of disagreement among the founders, and between the founders and the founding generation of Americans, if you will. But a certain consensus emerged around the ideas of the Enlightenment. A consensus around reason, around the value and efficacy of the individual. And as a consequence of all that, around a politics of freedom, around the idea that individuals should be left free to use their reason, to use their mind, to use their capacity to think, to choose their values, to choose their path in life, and then to act on it, to live it. And these thinkers took the best of the ideas that were being generated in the 18th century by the likes of Locke and Montesquieu and Voltaire and others, the many Enlightenment figures, both in England, Scotland, Paris, France, all over Europe. And they didn't just study them. It wasn't just for them something theoretical. It wasn't for them just intriguing academic. And it wasn't for them an issue of just being independent. John writes, America was the first Brexit. No. America was so much more than Brexit. Brexit is so low in comparison, in its goals, in its ambitions. I mean, not to oppose Brexit, but to compare any of the people responsible for Brexit or any of the ideas that drove the Brexit to the founding is to miss the point of the founding. The founding wasn't about separating from England. It was about establishing a new political order, an order of freedom. An order based, for the first time in human history, on the rights of man, on the rights of the individual. It's a rejection not just of an English king. It's a rejection of 2,000 plus years of authoritarian rule. It's a rejection of everything that Europe pre-Enlightenment stood for. And it's a celebration of all the achievements of those Enlightenment thinkers, American and non-American. It's an intellectual, philosophical, moral, political revolution. And it's, in that sense, the greatest political event in all of human history. Because it's the first political event in which the rights of man are explicitly recognized in a political document, articulated, and then fought for. So this is the thing that makes this so stunning. It's not only did they have the courage, the audacity, and the right ideas, to put a document together that articulates the case for freedom and for individual rights, but then they declared war on the mightiest military force the world probably at that point had ever seen. Certainly the strongest empire of the time. These tiny little colonies that were relatively poor declared war on the mightiest military force of their time. Why? I mean, one of the most touching, moving, significant portions of the Declaration of Independence comes right at the end. When it says, and for the support of this declaration, with a firm reliance on the protection of divine providence, we mutually pledge to each other our lives, our fortunes, and our sacred honor. Because they knew that to a large extent they were likely to be signing their death warrants. That the British wouldn't just shrug this off, wouldn't just say, oh, okay, you want your independence, go for it. War was already raging in New England. And they knew. And many of them suffered. Destruction of wealth, destruction of property, and for some, destruction of lives. So these were men, not just men of the intellect. These were men of action. These were men who declared war on an empire and went to war. But declared war on an empire and went to war for the noblest of ideas. Not just because they wanted to separate, not just because they wanted to be different, not because they wanted sovereignty. This War of Independence was not about sovereignty, not national sovereignty. It wasn't about establishing an America. This war was about much more than another border, another political entity. It would have never happened if it was just about being separate, making our own decisions for ourselves. This is a war declared in order to establish what ultimately became the first country to be established on a political principle of individual liberty, of individual freedom. And in a sense, the only country in human history to have in its founding document a moral principle, the principle of individual rights. And, it's a stunning document. You should all read the Declaration of Independence because it's truly stunning. Because it lays out an intellectual foundation. First it says, look, we're dissolving these political bonds with England. This is not an easy choice. This is not a simple choice. Right? We are going to explain to you why. If we're going to do this, it shouldn't be arbitrary. It shouldn't be random. It should be for a good reason. They say a decent, and I'm quoting from the Declaration, a decent respect to the opinions of mankind requires they should declare the causes which impel them to the separation. I'd like to see the Brexit folks put together a document like this and then have people vote on that document. And then they go on to make a abstract philosophical argument. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal. That's a revolution. I mean, it's a slap in the face, the idea of divine right of kings. It's a slap in the face to 2,000 years of British history, of European history, of aristocracy, of some people being unequal, having more rights than others. This is a revolutionary statement, an intellectually revolutionary statement. Not just, we don't like you. We fundamentally, philosophically disagree with you. That they're endowed by their creator with certain unalienable rights. There's a philosophical statement. Individuals have rights. All men have rights. That among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Whose life? The individual's life. Whose liberty? Each individual's. And in a moral, deeply moral statement, your life is yours, and you have a right. In other words, nobody can interfere with the actions you take in pursuit of what? In pursuit of sacrifice, in pursuit of the common good, in pursuit of the welfare state, in pursuit of whom? In pursuit of what? I mean, imagine that statement being written today. In pursuit of your race, in pursuit of your little tribe. Now, we'll get to the flaws of implementation, but think about what they're doing here. In pursuit of your happiness. Every individual has an inalienable right in pursuit of his happiness. That to secure these rights, governments are instituted among men. The anarchist should read that sentence. That whenever any form of government becomes destructive of those ends, it is the right of the people to alter or to abolish it, and to institute new government, laying its foundation on such principles and organizing its powers in such form as to them shall seem most likely to affect their safety and happiness. Notice that the role of government is to affect. They're your servants. They're not your rulers. And then they go on to list all the things that the King of England has done against them. They don't take that for granted. They actually list it. Here are the reasons. Here's what they've done. Here's how our rights are being violated. Now, this document is a truly magnificent document. In my view, the most important political document in all of human history. Yes, of course, it doesn't come in a vacuum. Of course, there's certain historical precedents to it. But this is the culmination. It's the thinking behind this document. The Enlightenment ideas that come out of France and England. France and Great Britain, I should say. That make this document possible. But it's not an inevitable consequence of the Magna Carta. It's not an inevitable consequence of anything. It's a human achievement. It's a massive new integration. Nobody else wrote a document like this. It's not just obviously a consequence of the Bill of Rights of 1689, which preserved the kings of England and preserved feudalism and preserved aristocracy as good as it might have been at the time. It's not just a consequence of a long string of British common law. It's a massive achievement above and beyond that. And it's an achievement that the British then, in a sense, emulate by shifting their own system towards greater and greater individual liberty, towards greater and greater freedoms. And what this document created was the greatest country we have ever seen. A country that has achieved greatness, wealth, and prosperity, that has welcomed tens of millions of immigrants, embraced them primarily by providing them with the same rights that their citizens had. A country that has made many mistakes, but has over decades and centuries worked to correct those mistakes, guided by the ideas in this document. Slavery being the obvious big mistake. Horror of slavery, for which this document drove for a civil war to correct that mistake. The country couldn't live the contradiction. The contradiction of saying all men are created equal, endowed with certain unalienable rights, when tens of thousands were not, were treated as slaves. That contradiction could not exist, could not sustain itself, had to be worked out. And the great tragedy is that it had to be worked out in a war rather than peacefully. Wouldn't it be greater if the South had just folded, had recognized that they had been wrong, and abandoned slavery out of an intellectual commitment to liberty and out of intellectual commitment to the Declaration of Independence? But that was not to be. Partially because the South committed itself to the ideas of the anti-Enlightenment. They committed themselves to the idea of the German Romantics, the ideas that supported their views of slavery. Of course, racism did not go away. Collectivism did not go away when slavery went away. The country had to continue fighting for this. And, of course, you had a civil rights movement in the 1960s to get rid of laws that did not treat men as equals before that law. Did not mean treat men as equal in rights. Did not treat everybody as having inalienable rights. And that was corrected. So it's a particularly tragedy that today, we live in a world where what people are trying to do is not continue to evolve this document, not fix, but fix the implementation of it. Focusing on how can we live up to the Declaration of Independence. But the focus today among our intellectuals and among our political leaders is how to dismantle this document. How to dismantle this country. How to reject these ideas. How to subvert them. How to undermine them. How to create a world where we're not all equal in rights. How some have greater rights than others. How to create a country that is not welcoming. How to create a country that reverts to the rule of elites, to the rule of aristocrats, to the rules of those who know the truth through revelation. Don't have to explain it by reason, because they know it, they have it. To revert to a world in which we are our genes, we are what we are born into, rather than a world that we create. Because the beauty of the Declaration is it created a world where individuals create their own destiny, where individuals create their own life. Individuals can choose their own values. Individuals can live to the best of their ability. And while the founders did not implement these ideals perfectly, you could argue far from it, given the evil of slavery, they set in motion a system that allowed for the consistent application of these ideas over time. What they were lacking, sadly, was what the entire Enlightenment was lacking. They were lacking the philosophical foundation for these ideas. What they were lacking was a complete, comprehensive philosophy to justify these ideas. What they were lacking was the complete, deep conviction in these ideas, particularly in epistemology and in ethics, these ideas of reason and individualism. What they're lacking was a philosopher like Ayn Rand. Well, we are not lacking. We not only have the amazing works of the founders, we not only have the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution, we not only have the United States of America and everything that they laid out, but we now have a philosophy consistent with these ideas. We now have the ultimate foundation for these ideas. We now have everything we need to fully commit ourselves to this philosophy, to freedom, and to this great document that was signed in 1776 on this day. So there are no excuses. There are no excuses not to fight for our freedom, because we've got 250 years of history to just reinforce the wisdom and truth of the Declaration of Independence. We have a philosophy articulated by Ayn Rand in Atlas Shrugged, The Virtue of Selfishness, Capitalism, An Unknown Ideal, Philosophy Who Needs It, and on and on and on. That provides a foundation, that provides a philosophical foundation for the ideas of the founding of this country, for the ideas that lay at the root of the Declaration of Independence. And what we need now is a revolution based on these ideas. A revolution to bring these ideas to the forefront of American and the world's lives. And look, the founders pledged their lives, their fortunes, and their sacred honor. The real question, I think, facing us today with all the challenges and the problems and everything that's going rotten in this country, and there's a lot, and I don't want to spend too much time on that today. Today's a celebration. But today's a day for each of you to ask yourself the question: what are you willing to pledge to make these ideas a reality? What are you willing to do to resurrect the vision of this magnificent document? Are you willing to get engaged in the fight? Are you willing to live up to the promise of this country? Are you willing to commit yourself to the idea of all men are created equal? Put aside created. All men are equal. Equal in rights, unalienable rights, right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Are you willing to pledge your life, your fortune, and your honor for that? And the day when there are enough of us willing to do that. The honking is traffic going by. I guess they're celebrating 4th of July in Puerto Rico, so that's a good thing, right? That's the honking you hear. I didn't realize you could hear the horns. That's great that you can hear them. When we have enough people who understand why they should celebrate, enough people who understand why they should honk, enough people to understand why the significance of the fireworks, that's when we can resurrect this country, resurrect this document, and bring these ideas back to the forefront. Bring back the Enlightenment and everything it represents. And again, it's not Brexit. This is an idea of individual liberty. Not who gets to decide who travels across borders and who doesn't, who gets to decide. It's about who gets to decide about your life, your values as an individual. All right, before I go to the questions, and I see we've got a lot of Super Chat questions, so thank you, and thank you to all of you who have participated in the Super Chat today. We've already broken the $400 mark, so we're sitting at $465. But somebody suggested we go for $1,776, so $1,776. That would be pretty cool. It's going to be a tough one, but let's see. Maybe we can do it. All right. Before I get to that, let me just say something on a personal note. I must admit that before I read Atlas Shrugged, I didn't get America. I didn't understand it. And in many ways, I resented it. I grew up a collectivist. I grew up very much committed to a tribal view of the world, and I found the individualism in America strange, unsettling, challenging to my worldview. And also, I found Americans to be quite materialistic, pursuing their own individual happiness, uninterested, seemingly, in anything bigger than that. And then I read Atlas Shrugged. And not only did Atlas Shrugged change my view pretty much about everything, my view about life, but one of the implications of that was that it changed my view about America. I now suddenly understood what made America different. It was that Americans, even Americans today, implicitly, are pursuing their own interests, are pursuing their own happiness. They don't quite know what it means, but they live. They spend money on themselves. And since they're not as sophisticated as I think they would be in a better culture, they're primarily focused on the material goods, but hey, that's great. And it completely changed my view of America. And suddenly I knew, and this is at the age of 16, I knew that one day I would move to America. I would try to succeed in America, that it was the only country in the world that represented the values of individualism, that represented the values of individual happiness and individual success. And it took me a while. I moved to the US when I was 26, that's 10 years. But I've never regretted the choice of coming to this country. I've never regretted the decision that this was the place to live. It saddens me to see the country become what it has become, even in the 34 years I've been here, to see the changes. It saddens me to see the extent to which we've moved away from the Declaration of Independence. It saddens me to see so few defenders of this declaration. And as an immigrant to the United States, maybe this is why you understand the extent to which I'm so passionate about immigration. It saddens me to see the turn against immigration in this country. But it is still the greatest country in the world, the one in which you still have the most opportunities, and the one that I think we still have the most chances of changing the world. The one in which we can have the most impact on the world. Americans still have it in them. It's fading, but they still have it in them. That sense of life that Ayn Rand talked about, that don't tread on me attitude, that leave me alone attitude, let me live my life attitude. It's still there. It's hidden. It's harder to find. Suddenly, COVID disappointed many of us where we didn't see it more overtly. But I still believe in this country. I still believe this is the place to fight. And as much as I believe in globalization, as much as I believe in integrating the world, as much as I believe that other countries are doing amazing things, it's still true that this is where the battle will be won and lost, I think. This is where we need to put our resources and our efforts. And thank you all for being here, for supporting the Yaron Brook Show, for helping us get the message and the word out there. Thanks to all the people over the years who've interviewed me and given me an opportunity to get these ideas out there. Thank you to Ayn Rand, to Leonard Peikoff for providing us, the intellectual ammunition to continue fighting. But it is up to us to keep fighting. It's up to us to commit ourselves. It's up to all of us. Not to think about Democrats, Republicans, who are fighting, all these fights, because that's peanuts. That's the little stuff. The real commitment, the real intellectual effort, the real struggle is this document. The achievement that the founders achieved, the achievement that the signers of this document achieved. Are you ready? Do you know enough? Are you committed to pledging your life, your fortune, your sacred honor to the idea of America? To the idea represented by the Declaration of Independence? That's the question you should ask yourself on the 4th of July. Great. Happy 4th, everybody. Thank you. Thanks for all the support through the years. Thank you for the support today. We're already at $650, so 1,126 to go. I shouldn't set such lofty goals. Dangerous. All right, let's see. We've got a lot of Super Chat questions. Attached to some big dollar amounts. So let me start with the bigger dollar amounts. Joe, thank you for the contribution. Here's to what America was meant to be, and can be if we make it. Absolutely. Thank you, Joe. And yes, the fight is ongoing. The fight is ongoing, and I'm committed, and hopefully you are too. Let's see. Also at that level, we've got Stephen. My father won't read Ayn Rand, but did read Ben Shapiro's The Right Side of History. He now says the idea of capitalism came from churches who were left alone by government, and so produced a lot. I got frustrated. Politics is about ideas, not accidents, thoughts. Yeah, it's not an issue of accidents either. It's what did churches produce? What did churches produce? It's absurd. I haven't read Ben Shapiro's The Right Side of History. I'll have to get a copy. But the idea that churches created the Industrial Revolution or created the wealth that we have or created freedom is absurd unless what you mean by that is, I don't know, that the Catholics embraced Thomas Aquinas' embracing Aristotle, and therefore brought reason into the Catholic Church, and ultimately that led to reason being embraced by the Enlightenment, that chain. But that's not churches producing a lot. That's complete garbage. And Ben Shapiro knows better than that. It's a complete attempt to undercut and subvert the role of reason, the role of science, the role of individual philosophers, the role of individual thinkers, the role of individual entrepreneurs, and to attribute it all to religion, which is just a lie. If anything, religion held us back. Religion, even if you see religious institutions doing good things, think about the good things that could happen if those institutions weren't there holding everything else back. I mean, yes, the Pope hired Michelangelo to paint the Sistine Chapel. Wow, look at the achievement of religion. But would Michelangelo not have created great sculpture, painting without the religion? And imagine more Davids rather than more Pietas, or ultimately what religiosity did to Michelangelo, the tragedy of it, if you follow his life, and the distraction that the church had on his life and his productive ability and everything. But the idea that they produced a lot, God, that is so wrong on so many levels. They hampered production. They stopped production. They vilified capitalists. They vilified money lenders. Even as they were doing money lending, they first burnt them at the stake and then they did it themselves. Yes, monks produced stuff after they criminalized anybody else competing with them. Imagine if they weren't there, how much richer, how much further along. Imagine if they hadn't prosecuted Galileo, or before Galileo, think of all the scientists and philosophers that they burnt at the stake. Think of all the people we don't know because their books were burnt. The modern attempt to explain our Western civilization in terms of Christianity is an abomination. An abomination. Best friend Hank, thank you. And I'm still waiting for those, burgers. I don't know what you're barbecuing today. I'm sure you're barbecuing because you always do. But thank you. Thank you for the support. Not just today, but just generally, and to the rest of you as well. I'm not sure I'll catch everybody's name. But let's see some of the larger contributions with questions. Michael, who contributes to the show through Superchat every single show pretty much, and has probably supported the show more consistently and probably with more dollars through Superchat than anybody. So thank you, Michael, for all of that. Michael asked, did you see a lot of Holocaust survivors with tattoos on their forearms when you were growing up in Israel? Do a lot of Israelis have PTSD? It's such a warm and welcoming culture despite all the evil and injustice that people have gone through? Yes, we did see a lot of Holocaust survivors with tattoos on their hands. Some of my friends, their parents were Holocaust survivors. Certainly, once you go back a generation, or people, 10, 15 years older than me, many of their parents were certainly Holocaust survivors. It was all around. It was everywhere in the culture. It was every place. There are a lot of Israelis have PTSD, I assume, from post-traumatic stress syndrome from all the wars and everything. I think they have some. I think many in the earlier generations of Israeli wars just fought through the PTSD. It was, but also PTSD was looked down upon for a long time, right? You were supposed to be a man and overcome it. So there was a certain chauvinistic kind of culture in Israel where you're supposed to get over the mental struggles, you're supposed to get over pain, you're not supposed to. That's changed over the last 30, 40 years, but certainly when I was growing up, nobody talked about PTSD. It was just something you didn't talk about. You didn't talk about the trauma of war. You talked about the death, destruction, the sadness of war, but not about the trauma that the heroes of war suffered from. Troy, thank you. Troy is probably dollar-wise, one of my biggest supporters for the Iran Book Show, both here and through the sponsorship of shows. So thank you, Troy, for that. So rather than asking questions, Troy sponsors shows, which has been fantastic. The whole series on moral virtues of objectivism was sponsored by Troy, an Australian, one of the several Australians who are regular supporters of the Iran Book Show. So Israel's a warm culture. I think partially because of the evil and injustice, right? It's a culture of survivors. It's a culture of fighters. It's a culture that knows the value of people who share their values because they're brothers in arms, in a sense. They fight together. So it's a culture of fighting and surviving. And it's a culture now, particularly in modern times, in the last few decades, of producers, of builders and creators. And there's definitely a sense of life. Now, it's also and the sad part about Israel, it's a very tribal culture. It's a tribal where part of that warmth is also, a kind of, we're going to get involved in your life and tell you how to live your life, right? So it's a mixed bag. It's one of the reasons I left. But I primarily left for positive reasons. It's not so much that I disliked Israel. I didn't. It was primarily that I wanted more. And that drove me to the United States because ideologically, philosophically, and just in terms of opportunities, this was the place. Dara asks, thank you for the contribution again. Don't often get to watch live. What a treat. 2 off-topic questions. When is the show on the economic history of Asian tigers? Some point, not sure exactly when. It's not an easy show to do because it's a complicated topic. And like history, you have to study it, you have to figure it out. I did do an interview recently with Scott Lincecone, I think I got the name right, that'll be on the Ingenuism channel. And that show covers a little bit about the history of the Asian tigers, at least in the sense of to what extent did central planning, to what extent is it responsible for what happened with the Asian tigers? And then also, have you seen reaction to the Boeing Gulf oil rig? Everyone's blaming capitalism. The burning Gulf oil rig. No, I haven't. I didn't even know there was a burning Gulf oil rig. I'll have to look it up. How did I miss that? I've been watching the news, at least on the internet, today and haven't seen that. So I'll check it out. But it's not surprising. They always blame capitalism. No matter what bad happens, they blame capitalism. And when the good happens, they blame other stuff, right? They never give capitalism the credit. And they always give capitalism the blame. Always, right? Oh, so it's really not surprising. All right, let's see what we have here. I'm just trying to copy the latest questions onto the super chat, from the super chat. All right. Let's see. What else do we have here? Simon, thank you. Simon Zmelinski. Thank you for the support. Really, really appreciate it. And Best Fed Hank has added a question. Okay, let's see. Let's do some other $20 questions. Excellent show with Michael Malice on Lex's podcast. Kevin writes, thank you. I believe you and Malice should form a joint venture and have a weekly or monthly show together. Maybe, probably not. There's probably some real differences that did not come across on Lex. I mean, I think there's a certain advantage of doing a show with somebody like Malice who brings a kind of lightheartedness and a sense of humor to it. I think it would make my show bigger, but I also think that Malice and I would, there's some real disagreements philosophically that are pretty substantial that I think we would encounter if we try to do a show together. It might be interesting because there might be some interesting debates that would come out of it. But I don't know if it's sustainable or tenable. I would much rather find a co-host who was sympathetic intellectually, and who also had that kind of lightheartedness and sense of humor. That would be terrific. But I don't know of anybody right now. But if you guys know of somebody, I could try to do a few shows with them and see if it worked, see if there was chemistry. Need to find somebody with that real chemistry. All right, Dave writes, Dave Goodman. Dave writes, you notice many people have a blockage when it comes to registering logic reality, even when it's staring them in the face, right in the face. It's as if there's some force in their mind preventing them from making sense that makes sense from registering. Yes, there's very powerful psychological forces that prevent people from acknowledging truth when that truth is challenging and potentially painful, in a sense that it has to overturn some deeply held beliefs. And the other part of it is they're not trained, and this is really important. They don't have the self-esteem. They don't have the self-esteem to take a stand with regard to the truth. If that stand is different than what a majority of the people they interact with is. So I think, there's a whole psychological element, and thus a whole self-esteem element to the current state of the world. It's very hard psychologically, and it's very difficult to stand up to the world. It's part of what we've discussed in the past about people abandoning objectivism or abandoning truth. It's very hard to stand up to the world and say, this is right, you are wrong. Very hard to say that to your parents, to your loved ones, to your friends, to the culture, to the world around you, to your teachers, to your professors, to your priest. And we live in a world of low self-esteem. We live in a world of bluster, of narcissism, of pseudo self-esteem, of cockiness, of arrogance, but not a world of true self-esteem, not a world of people confident to look at reality, observe the truth, and stand up to anybody who challenges it, no matter who they are. There's not enough of them. And in that sense, we live in a world that is low in self-esteem, and that's the struggle. It's a psychological struggle. It's a psychological struggle. Laura says, happy to support these important values. Thank you. Really appreciate the support. As Alejandrina says, we only need $562 to get to raising on this show $1,776. Right? I think it's now $557, right? Well, no, $542. We're pretty close, It might be doable, who knows? Roland asks you, do you have a favorite movie to watch on the 4th of July? I don't. I should have. I wonder, do you guys have a favorite movie to watch on the 4th of July? What would you recommend? That'll be a good Super Chat discussion. What would you recommend as a good movie to watch on the 4th of July? I think there are a few movies that represent the spirit of the 4th of July that I like. I really like the movie The Last of the Mohicans from the 1980s. I think it has the spirit of the 4th, the spirit of independence, the spirit of what ultimately, it's a movie about a period before the War of Independence, but it's I think the spirit of that. With Daniel Day-Lewis, who's brilliant in it, and it's just such a hot. I don't know. It's such a intellectually right movie. It portrays the British right in the sense of why there needed to be a revolution ultimately, and it represents that spirit of independence that is captured by Daniel Day-Lewis. And it's just, I think it's a beautiful movie. No, Braveheart is just not a good movie from that perspective. It's not about freedom. It's the antithesis of freedom. Not the antithesis, but it's, I mean, this is the scene. I mean, I know they all yell freedom. You know, they're fighting for freedom. But what does freedom mean to them? Does it mean the right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness? Does it mean individual liberty? I mean, the freedom to them is a little bit reminds me of Brexit. It's the freedom to be ruled by a Scottish king, not an English king. It's the freedom to be ruled by somebody from your tribe, not another tribe. It's exactly not what the American Revolution is about. The American Revolution is the rejection of that. So, no, I mean, Braveheart is not a movie about freedom in the sense of the kind of freedom we have. I mean, certainly the John Adams miniseries that HBO ran is a pretty powerful thing. Best Friend Hack says 12 Angry Men with Henry Fonda. I love that movie. It's one of my all-time favorite movies. But it's not a 4th of July movie. So as I said, I love Last of the Mohicans. I'm trying to think of other great movies for the 4th of July, really good movies. I mean, there needs to be created. 1776, the director's cut, which is available on Prime. I don't think I've seen that. So let me watch that. Is that a movie of the musical? I mean, it was the musical itself that I saw. Well, I saw the movie. I thought it was good, but it wasn't great. What would be a really great? I mean, Hamilton. The musical is good, but not at this level. Red Dawn, I don't know, it's not a good enough movie, qua movie. Rocky has certain elements of striving, but again, it's not that great of a movie. It's a good movie, but it's just not that great of a movie. And it's not intellectual enough. I had in my mind another movie. Anyway, I'll keep thinking about that. Last of the Mohicans is the only one that comes to my mind right now. Whiplash, but not a 4th of July movie. I like Whiplash a lot, but it's not a 4th of July movie. There are a lot of good movies. The Patriot I think it's Mel Gibson, right? It's mixed. Shawshank Redemption, again, a really good movie, but I don't think it's I don't think it's a movie for the 4th of July. The Edge is a great movie, but with Anthony Hopkins, about independence and about the use of the mind, and the mind is man's reason is man's basic means of survival. That's kind of the theme of The Edge. It's a survivalist movie, one of the best, but not necessarily a movie. V for Vendetta is such a mixed movie with such a horrible element of the movie that is really horrible. And again, it's not about liberty. It's not about freedom. You don't do what he did to that girl if it's about freedom. The Fountainhead, well, of course, but again, Glory, I love Glory. Glory's a beautifully made, really well acted, exciting and very strong emotional movie. Sound of Music, yeah, great movie, fantastic movie. V for Vendetta is an anarchist movie, not a 4th of July movie. Jeremiah Johnson, I've seen that a long time ago, I can't remember it. The Right Stuff, another really, really good movie. Yeah, that would be fun to watch on the 4th of July in a sense of achievement. Flashdance, nah. It's fun. But anyway, a 4th of July movie that captures the spirit of the 4th of July. Sound of Music is a fantastic movie. I love that movie. It's definitely about liberty. It's definitely about freedom. And it's definitely beautifully made and produced. And the music is fantastic. Revolution from 1985. I remember seeing it, but I can't remember what I think about it. Titans That Built America is a series. It's not a movie, and it's mixed. Captain America is terrible. It's terrible. All right. Anyway, I'm not. Don't even try with the superhero movies. I don't like them. All right. Let's see what else do we have. Looking for the $20 movies. $20 questions. Iron Man. No. I mean, it's okay. Of the superhero movies, it's probably the best. But, Naveen, one of my all-time favorite movies, and a movie that is about, I don't think it's about liberty and freedom. I mean, the theme, I think, of this movie is heroism. Heroism in all its forms, spiritual and material. And to me, it's one of the best movies ever. One of my favorite all-time movies is a movie called This Land Is Mine. It's a black and white movie with Charles Lawton. In my view, it's, wow. It's hard to, you got to watch it, and you got to be patient because it's black and white, and you got to give it the time necessary to really, you got to watch it like a movie deserves. But This Land Is Mine is one of the great all-time movies. Shazbot says, movie to watch on 4th, Caveman with Ringo Starr. It even has a David versus Goliath scene. All right, Shazbot, we're going to have a discussion about your taste in movies. I have watched Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. So I will have a review of Once Upon a Time in Hollywood soon to pay back Shazbot for his, I think it was $500 that he contributed for me to review that movie, and we will have it ready next week sometime. I did watch it, I think, last weekend. Quickly, The Great Escape, that's a good movie. Then about 4th of July. Star Wars, okay. The Godfather, not a 4th of July movie at all. Great movie, not a 4th of July movie. Hunger Games, yeah, fun. Spartacus, yeah. I could see Spartacus. One of my favorite movies with his name will come to me. Kirk Douglas. Fahrenheit 451, yeah. This Land Is Mine, again, one of the greatest of all time. The ballad at the end of that, I don't know. I bawled at the end of that. Which one? I'm not sure which movie. Planet of the Apes. Okay. Yeah, if you can find This Land Is Mine, all-time, one of my top 5 all-time movies. Let's see, Yankee Doodle Dandy, okay. John Adams is very good. Django Unchained, the only movie of Quentin Tarantino that I can say I like. I think it's the only one. I don't like any of his other movies. I'm not a fan. Django Unchained is not one of my favorite movies. Not a great movie, but I don't like him generally. But Shine. What is Shine? To Kill a Mockingbird, a great movie. 300. Somewhat superficial action movie. Portrays Sparta all wrong. Portrays Greece all wrong. Portrays the values at stake all wrong. But yeah, pretty a good movie if you want to watch, amazingly sculpted male figures. Gettysburg is pretty amazing. Lincoln by Spielberg is good. This Land Is Mine again. Oh, that's the one you were referring to. Yes, I would bother. I understand that. It's on Amazon Prime. This Land Is Mine is on Amazon Prime. Charles Lawton. Make sure that's the movie you're watching. All right, 7 Days of May, Predator, Lightbulb, Predator, IP Man, Glorious Bastards. I didn't like it at all. And it has the problem with, and this is already the beginning of my review of Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. But the problem with Tarantino movies is they have no plot. There's no story. Django Unchained maybe has a story, but most of his movies, and certainly Inglourious Bastards, have no plot. And that's a real problem. All right, let's go back to the Super Chat questions because we can talk about movies all day long. Just this last one. Do you like the movie The Patriot with Mel Gibson? It was actually very good. Yeah, I do think I liked The Patriot. I saw it a long time ago when it first came out. I think I liked it. It's not one of my favorite movies, but I think I liked it. Amistad by Steven Spielberg. I think it's the best. Yes, Amistad is a great 4th of July movie, and it's I think the best Steven Spielberg movie. It's very powerful, very good intellectually, beautifully made, super powerful, super powerful. So, Amistad, one of my favorite movies. So I encourage people, if you haven't watched Amistad, to watch it. Not an easy movie to watch, but from the opening scene throughout, it has you riveted, and it's an intellectual movie. Has a great portrayal of John Quincy Adams. I don't know if it's an accurate portrayal, but a great portrayal of John Quincy Adams. Amistad is an excellent movie. Let's see. Some people have no taste. Oh, Jennifer asked, do you think it would have been a better idea to split off right from the bat with the supporters of slavery instead of compromising with them? I don't know. I don't know what splitting up would have been. I think it should have been done sooner rather than later. I think the earlier the better, but exactly when and could it have been achieved at the same time as fighting the British? I don't think so. So maybe you fight the British and then you focus on splitting up. So maybe that's what you have to do. Let's see. Yeah, I'm a stud. You will not, and watch I'm a stud on a big screen with a good sound system and a good television, because a lot of it's in the dark. But it's the acting. I mean, the lead actor in Amistad is fantastic. He is so good, and it's too bad he's not in a lot of other movies, but he's so good. All right. Can every individual have his own gender? That way, everyone is a disprivileged minority whose rights need to be protected. I think everybody is a disprivileged minority whose rights need to be protected. I know that was a joke question, but I think the point is, Ayn Rand's point, the small minority is the individual. If you do that, the concept of gender loses all meaning. Of course, it probably has lost all meaning already. Linda writes, happy 4th, everyone. Thanks, Linda. Jason writes, thank you, Ron. You've changed my life. I really appreciate that, Jason. Thank you. Thank you for the support. Thomas writes, what is happening in Hong Kong is terrible, but can it still survive as a great city, even if less great than before? Maybe like Shanghai or some other cities in China that have thrived in spite of government. I don't know. I don't know. So much of Hong Kong is tied to that sense of freedom. So many of Hong Kong's most vibrant young people are leaving, are escaping. I don't know that that's true in China. I think it's going to lose it. And I think ultimately Shanghai can't survive. Ultimately, the Chinese system will implode. It will go against itself, and all this stunning cities like Shanghai will, I think, disappear. The contradictions cannot survive. Just like in the United States, slavery couldn't survive the contradiction. Free market, and wealth creation is going to not survive. I just read. So because I've done a couple of shows on Jack Ma and what's happening, but I just read, I haven't read any kind of analysis of this, but I just read that, this Chinese company Didi, that just went public on the on the NASDAQ, on NYC in the US. It went public in the US at a massive valuation, raised a huge amount of money and a massive success story, and went up the next day. It all happened this week. Is now being attacked by the Chinese government for all kinds of claims. Again, they're going to have to eat their own. They're going to have to go after their own people, because freedom leads to individualism, leads to individuals attaining economic power, if not political power. And that's something the Communist Party, the authoritarian party, any authoritarian party cannot abide by. And therefore they will eat their own, and they will destroy their own achievements. And it's just horrible. Just horrible. Okay, Joe asked, thanks, Joe. Has the left done any major attack on the 4th of July yet? Do you think that if they did, they wouldn't be a major stepping stone towards popular legitimizing of right-wing nationalism? I think the left has, it tries not to overdo it. And there's certain elements among the left that don't want it to be happening. Like, I don't think Joe Biden hates America, but certainly I don't think AOC celebrates the 4th of July. I don't think that wing, that part of the Democratic Party celebrates the 4th of July. They hate the 4th of July. They would claim that America was founded on slavery, that America was founded on genocide of the American Indians, that America was founded in exploitation, that capitalism is a system of exploitation, and America sustained that. So there are a lot of things about America that they hate, but they know that politically it's suicide for them to be too explicit about it. So they try to, the intellectuals all talk that talk, but the politicians can't, because they know it would be death to their political ambitions. Americans will not abide by explicit hatred of America. And the left knows it. Again, one of the reasons I worry less about the left. I still worry. It's not that I don't worry about the left, and I do a lot of shows about the left. But I worry less is because I think once the American people realize how anti-American the left is, they will reject them. Versus the right, which couches themselves, which wraps themselves around the flag, is a lot more appealing to Americans. All right, 1776 is actually attainable in the sense of the dollars raised at the show. With 1363. I don't know what happened in 1363. It sounds like an important date, 1363. I'm not sure what happened. Maybe the beginning of the Renaissance, or very close to the beginning of the Renaissance. We've got $412 to go for 1776. I don't know if that's something you guys want to achieve. It would be pretty cool. But it would be pretty cool if we could say we raised 1776 on the 4th of July. But, of course, that's in your hands. Somebody could just do it.
Somebody could do half of it. 4 of you could do about 100 each. It can be done, but it's a question of whether you want it, right? Whether you want it. It would be cool. There's Best Friend Hank is contributing towards that. Noel is contributing towards that. Thank you, guys. That's very generous. So we're just under 100 less now. So we need 300 and something to get to that number. So, yep. Thanks, guys. Keep it coming. And maybe we'll get there. We're going to get very close. It'll be kind of sad if we're at 1,600 and we're short the 176 or something like that. All right, Best Friend Hank asked, what is your favorite story of an immigrant coming to the U.S. and their achievements and accomplishments? I don't know, because there's so many of them, starting with my own story. And my favorite story has to be my own, right? But there's so many of them, right? Most of the robber barons, so-called robber barons, the great industrialists who built the country, made the country what it is in the 19th century, were immigrants who came with nothing, started with nothing. Today, even though I have very mixed feelings about him, certainly Elon Musk is an immigrant. The CEOs of most of the successful tech companies out there are immigrants. I'm trying to think of if there's anything that really stands out. There's so many stories of, World War II heroes, great industrialists. Think of how many Nobel Prizes American scientists have gotten. How many Nobel Prizes in sciences, in medicine, Americans have received. An astounding number of those, well over 50%, I believe. You could look it up on Google. Somebody should Google it right now. Are immigrants to the United States. Think of how they have changed this world. Think of the engineers. Think of all the people who've shaped our life. But at the end of the day, my favorite immigrant to America has to be the most important person in my life in terms of shaping my life, who's an immigrant to the United States of America. And that, of course, is Ayn Rand. So if I have a favorite immigrant story to America, it's Ayn Rand's story. Thank you, Theme Master, 50 pounds. That gets us way closer. And Shazbot says he has bad taste in movies, but he has good taste in live podcasts. Yes, you do. Yes, you do. And, we'll work on your taste in movies. We'll have to hopefully my critiques of your bad movies that you're asking for critiques, the fact that you're asking me to critique them maybe suggests that you're open to improvement on the movies. But thank you, Shazbot. Shazbot got us $100 closer to now. We're $250 away, so it's getting very, very, very close. But think about Ayn Rand's story. Escaped communism, came to the United States because she happened to have family members in Chicago, came here on a visa that she knew she wouldn't fulfill. So, she in a sense was an illegal immigrant. She didn't literally violate it, but do you have any doubt that she would have? That she would have if she had, if that was the only way for her to stay? She came here not knowing how she would ultimately get a legal visa. She ultimately got the legal visa by marrying an American. And of course, so came with nothing, literally nothing. No family to support her. A little bit, the Chicago family helped her out in the early days, but no real support. Nothing from, obviously, a family in the Soviet Union. And she made it. She was a massive success. Massive success. All right, let's see, where are we? Okay, that's a good best friend Hank. Another best friend Hank. Best friend Hank has a whole series of these. All right, why can't a politician go off script and actually talk about the glories of immigration and of this country and what it stands for? Because they don't know it, because they don't believe it, and because they're not intellectual anymore. I mean, with all of Ronald Reagan's flaws, Ronald Reagan deeply loved this country and had a certain sense about its value. And of course, Ronald Reagan's last speech is a wonderful, amazing speech about the value of immigration and about the value of immigration in the context of what America stands for. But there are no politicians today, no politicians, that think in those terms anymore. And once in a while you think, okay, maybe there's one, I don't know, Ted Cruz on certain days or Rand Paul. And then when it comes down to what does power require, they completely fold. They completely fold. Okay, Valdrin says, according to Google, I guess, in 2019, 50% of Nobel laureates were foreign-born immigrants. 50% of American Nobel laureates were immigrants. I mean, the tragedy of the anti-immigrant right and left is horrible. It's just unbelievably sad. All right, Ragnar of the Desert. I love that name. Ragnar of the Desert, it's because he lives in the desert, and he loves Ragnar, has just put us at 1776. Don't contribute any more money. All right, we will show $131.58. Ragnar of the Desert did it, and then Milad Abba, thank you for contribution, but you spoiled it. You took us over 1776. But Milad says, I am an immigrant, would also like to contribute to this amazing goal of 1776. May the liberty and prosperity live forever. Absolutely, absolutely. All right, we made it. In honor of Ragnar, and I can't pronounce his name, the character in Atlas Shrugged. That is amazing. Thanks, you guys. Diego says we should go for the next milestone, which is 17,760. Maybe that's a little ambitious. We have to get to 100,000 subscribers to be able to go for shows of 17,000. But that is amazing. Thanks, guys. That's terrific. And thank you to all of you who've contributed to today's shows, past shows, and who contribute monthly and support the shows in a variety of different ways, that share and everything else. It's great to see so much engagement and so much support and so much love. It really is heartwarming and encouraging, and suggests that there is a passionate base out there for these ideas and for trying to change the world. We're going to do this. All right. Let's run through these Super Chat questions. There are quite a few of them still. I'll run through them. I find myself resenting my parents and teachers. Adam, thank you. There's $50 from Adam. Happy 4th. Happy 4th to you, Adam. Michael says, I find myself resenting my parents and teachers for not exposing me to Ayn Rand growing up. I had to deal with such unnecessary epistemological chaos from people I feel should have known better. Yes, and we all do. We all do. I mean, what a culture that had Ayn Rand. She was right there. Many of them read Ayn Rand, saw Ayn Rand on television, and ignored them. What a tragedy. And yeah, I'm pissed off at the intellectuals. And I'm pissed off in particularly at intellectuals like, like free market thinkers who should have known better, who got it at some level and refused to take Ayn Rand seriously, to take her philosophy seriously. Just pathetic. Pathetic. Jacob asked, best 20, 30-minute introduction to reason and objectivism for a young person with religious history. I think philosophy needs it. and then the virtue of selfishness. Those two, yeah. I mean, I think that's great. Virtue of selfishness is probably hard. I mean, Anthem doesn't take 20 or 30 minutes to read, maybe a couple of hours, but Anthem is a great introduction. But Philosophy Who Needs It forces you to think about philosophy. And then the content is provided by virtue of selfishness. I'm trying to think of I'm not really good at, bringing up, Leonard Peikoff's, Introduction to Objectivism. Excellent Mike says, first time contributor, great show, keep up the great work. Thank you. Really appreciate the support. This is great. So, I think you hit it. Philosophy needs a virtue of selfishness, either one of those. Ian Mirkat. Was the U.S. truly free in 1776, since it had slavery and all, just the North maybe? Yeah, I mean, there's no question slavery was a big black mark on the question of freedom. You were white. Were women free in 1776? Not so much, right? There was a lot of restrictions on women in terms of property rights for a long time in the United States. So 1776 set in motion the freedom. And the sad thing is that as political freedom gained, particularly after the Civil War and emancipation of women and ultimately to this day, gay rights and gay marriage, right? All of that, which is good in terms of social freedoms, political rights, as that is happening and that is increasing, economic rights to property are in decline. And that's the great tragedy that we live in. We live in a sense, in some respects, in the freest time in all of human history, freer than 1776. Certainly if you're a woman, if you're gay, if you're black, you're freer today than you were in 1776. But from an economic perspective, from a property rights perspective, you're less free. And that's, freedom of speech. Think about John Adams signing the Something in Sedition Act, right? A huge violation of free speech. Very early in the Republic's history. We have more free speech today. Much more free speech. As much as we complain, as much as we try place it at the forefront of everybody's thinking because it's so important. So we keep talking about it. Alien and Sedition Act. Thank you. But there's more free speech today than there was 100 years ago. And the tragedy is that together with that increase in social freedoms, there's a dramatic decline in property rights in our freedoms from an economic realm. Dave asks, what do you make of DINK, dual income, no kids phenomena? A lot of young people, couples opting for this. Look, I think it can be a rational decision. I generally think that as a cultural phenomena, it represents cynicism. It represents hedonism. It represents a lack in belief in the future. So I'm not saying that is a reason for any particular couple. I know a lot of couples who've chosen it, and for them it makes sense. It's rational, it's long-term. Ayn, for example, right? But I think as a cultural phenomena, it is a sign of lack of belief in the future and a certain cynicism, skepticism, and a focus on the short term and a focus on pleasure at the expense of long-term values, if you will. Dave also asks, I see no reason why charismatic, Spanish-speaking objectivists can't become governor of Puerto Rico. All right, all we need is now, I might have the charisma, but I don't have the Spanish-speaking. I have the objectivist. So we need that. You say that, but at the same time, Puerto Rico is dominated by people, as wonderful of a place, and the people are, that are very leftist and very oriented towards unions and very don't trust capitalism. So it's still going to be an uphill battle, but hopefully we can find somebody in Puerto Rico. And, if you were governor of Puerto Rico, you could do a lot. If we could change Puerto Rico, it would be pretty amazing because of its status as both being part of America and not being part of the U.S. having this dual status would make it possible for no, not, I would be better than Peter Schiff. Give me a break. Warner Freeman, really? Mitch says he's not a fan of the Constitution. It doesn't even mention categorical imperative. I think Mitch is ribbing me. He asked one of these questions yesterday. I can't remember what it was, but it was kind of... All right. Florida Nick, what is your favorite kind of fireworks? My favorite part of a fireworks show is the ending when they let off everything all at once and just the sky lights up with a massive amount of fireworks all over the place. I just like that explosion, that jubilance that's associated with it. It's just amazing. Joe asks, it's a $20 question, so he gets priority. Just got a new job with a new company. Congratulations. I thought of leaving my job and some of the people there is stressful, but I asked what work would do in my context and said yes. Just broke 6 figures at 25. Thank you, Rand and Yaron. That's fantastic, Joe. Consistent with the kind of the themes that I've had on my shows over the last few years. That's amazing. Guys, you got to have courage. You got to have the courage of your conviction. You've got to have the attitude, I only live once. I got to take risks. I got to push myself. I've got to strive to live the best life that I can live. And if that's your attitude at 25, just keep it. Keep that attitude. Keep it at the forefront, and you'll live a great life. It's in your hands, in spite of the politics, in spite of all the horror show that is our political world. There's still so much of life that's just in your hands. You get to determine. Stick with it. All right, Ian Merkat says, come back to Israel. It's becoming increasingly individualistic while America is doing the opposite. I hope that's true. I'll be in Israel in a few weeks. Hopefully, I'll have a couple of events there. We'll see how we do. If you're in Israel listening to this, stay tuned. I will be announcing some events. My book, Free Market Revolution, is coming out in Hebrew, and we'll do an event to launch the book, and hopefully we'll do a couple of events, maybe do a debate. I don't know. My friend Boaz is working on that, but I will be coming to Israel in a few weeks at the end of this month. The events will be in the first week of August, so free up your first week of August. Hopefully, we'll have big audiences in Israel for the events, probably in the Tel Aviv area. Best friend Hank, wow, best friend Hank is giving a lot this show. Thank you again. Thanks for those words you just spoke, Yaron. My pleasure. My pleasure. Keystone asks, have you ever seen someone radically change their philosophical or political ideas after the age of 40 years old? Yeah, I think the current CEO of the Iron Man Institute, Tal Tzfani, became an objectivist after 40 or around 40. It's rare. I once met a guy who read Atlas Shrugged at 71 and kind of embraced the ideas, at least to some extent. Now, I don't know how radical the change. I don't know if they came from a completely different perspective or, in a sense, this is how they were living their lives anyway. But it's harder the older you get. There's no question. Stossel didn't become an objectivist. Stossel became a libertarian, but he was an objectivist. He's still not an objectivist. Never will be, unfortunately. So yes, it can happen. It's rare. It's very rare. So that's why the focus in terms of changing people should be on people under 40, under 30, I think. Ryan Ward asks, everyone should read Equal is Unfair. Thank you. That's my book with Don Watkins. But especially today, you should buy your copy of a new textbook of Americanism. Hold on. 1 second. It's one of the few books on the shelf. This is the book to read today. That's right. Thank you. I meant to bring it out earlier, Ryan. So thank you. This is a book edited by Jonathan Hoenig. It has an essay, Ayn Rand's essay, on what it means, what Americanism is. It's the textbook of Americanism, which is the whole first section of the book. Incredibly, powerful article that's never really been published before by Ayn Rand. So this is the book. Get it. Beyond that, it has an essay by Ankar, by Jonathan, by Andrew Bernstein, by Amy Peikoff, by Don Watkins, Greg Salmieri, Leonard Peikoff, and some other excerpts of Ayn Rand that were never published before. An excerpt on workshop on ethics and politics that she did. And then in the last part, it has an essay by myself, by Brad Thompson, by Harry Binswanger, Ilan Juno, and then it ends with something by Leonard Peikoff, Capitalism as Secular. So just a terrific book, and it's exactly the book to read on the 4th of July because it summarizes, it essentializes what it means to be an American. So this is the book to read. Thank you, Ryan, for pointing out the fact that I neglected it. I meant to, and I forgot to take it off the shelf. It's one of the few books I have here in Puerto Rico with me because everything else is on a Kindle. Everything else is on my iPad. I don't have many books. The books are coming from California. They'll arrive on Thursday. But this I have because it's a relatively new book, so I got the copies here. All right, Yaron, have you seen the video of baseball player Rick Monday stopping two people from burning the U.S. flag in center field in the 1970s? No, I haven't. But that's great because that's pretty disgusting to do it at a baseball game, which is so American. And it's private property. And people are there to watch baseball. So you want to burn your flag on your own property? You've got every right to do it. But, not in a baseball game. Have you ever seen Searching for Bobby Fischer? Yes, I love that movie. It's a great movie. Interesting movie about chess, children, talent, and character. Yes, it's a fantastic movie. We watched it recently, I think within the last year or two, and it's terrific. It really is terrific. I also really enjoyed that miniseries on HBO, on Netflix, the Gambit, something Gambit? What was the Gambit? Something Gambit on chess. I thought it was terrific. Beautifully shot, beautifully filmed, just terrifically acted. An actress with a really fascinating face. Queen's Gambit, thank you, Ian. With a terrific, very intriguing kind of face and expressions and really good actress. Queen's Gambit, it was really terrific. It was one of the best shows I've seen in a long, long time. I really enjoyed it. I wasn't sure in the middle whether it was worth it, but the ending was so fabulous. The last couple of episodes was so good. I talked about it on the show back then. It was just, I just loved it. It was just terrific. Okay, Stephen Pettit asks, have you ever, that was Searching for Bobby Fischer. Yes, a fabulous movie on chess. Oh, Scott. All right, Scott asks, you've said that Leonard Peikoff perhaps changed his mind on the threat of the right versus left since writing Dim. Would it be worth asking him at some point? Leonard Peikoff is retired. I can say that he's explicitly asked me not to talk to him about these kind of issues, and we don't. So, no, I mean, he's retired. He obviously doesn't want to talk about it. If he wanted to, he'd probably make a public statement. He knows my views. He knows the discussion. I mean, he is free to comment on it, but he takes his retirement, I think, seriously, and it's not to say he doesn't have opinions and not to say his opinions agree with mine. On some issues they don't. All right, I don't want to talk too much about it. Okay. Why do they show American Pie on cable on July 4th? I think because it's got American in the name and because it's a silly movie. I think it's a silly movie. That represents kind of the materialistic, mindless nature of certain parts of American culture, and it's a sense an undermining, so it's not very interesting. Ian Mika says, you really have a good chance to market this philosophy to young Israelis. Look, I've been doing that for the last, when did I start marketing objectives? Since the early 1980s, I've been trying to market objectivism to Israelis. It has a fast-growing liberty movement that just needs to refine some of its ideas. I would be happy to. I'd be happy to go to Israel more often if there's an audience and if there's a market. So sell me on the fact that there's a market. Sell me on the fact that there's an audience. Sell me on the fact that people really are interested in this, and I will come more often to promote the ideas. I've been excited about the liberty movement in Israel and about objectivism chances in Israel for about 10 years. I think Boaz Arad has done a phenomenal job in Israel and is still doing a phenomenal job in Israel, promoting Ayn Rand and her ideas. And I'm excited about Israel's potential. It's realizing that potential, and it is going to be the struggle. Many Israelis with the right ideas leave, they don't stay. And we'll see whether there are enough Israelis who stay who can actually have an impact and change that culture. It's a small enough country that we should be able to have a big impact on it, right? Yep. Almost had a friend of mine elected to Israeli parliament, but she didn't make it. I was really hopeful for a while there, but it didn't happen. So, all right, wow. We made 1916, but we crossed the 1776, and that's exciting. 1916 is not a particularly good year in American history. It's a year in which Herbert Hoover was president. I think was that the year he was elected president? No, that was 1914. But any year where Herbert Hoover was president is not a good year. So thank you, Naveen, for adding 10 years. So now we're at 1926, which is a much better year in terms of American history. I can't remember if Coolidge was president or not, but he might have been. Anyway, much better president than than Wilson. The Wilson who was president in 1916. How much of the 1776 does Yaron get to keep? YouTube takes a significant percentage. Apple Store a good percentage. Government on top of that, and what he can spend, sales tax takes percent. Not a good picture. Okay, let's be clear. Take that government section out, because where I live, only 4% of that gets taken by the government. So it's true, YouTube takes a chunk. YouTube, Apple Store, all of that, whatever. That's about 30% gets taken there. But nothing goes to the government, or very little goes to government. The sales tax, yeah, but I try to buy as much as I can without sales tax. There's not much you can buy without sales tax, but like you can buy from certain stores in the U.S. and they send it to you tax-free. But yes, a lot of I only pay 4% corporate tax, and this money goes to my corporation, not to me personally. It goes to the Yaron Brook Show, or Brook Media and Consulting, which owns the YouTube account. So no, I get to keep quite a bit of it. Now that money then pays for the people who help me produce the show, pays for the marketing of the show, and I also make a profit from which you fund my time for all of these things that I do. So thank you, everybody. Okay, I mentioned last show that I will be on Sam Seder's show on Tuesday at 1 p.m. East Coast time. So if you want to support me on that show, tune in on Sam Seder's Majority Report at 1 p.m. East Coast time on Tuesday. That's the kind of thing your funds fund, because nobody pays me to do that. And hopefully that'll go well, and we'll get some new subscribers. We have a show on Tuesday on parenting. I've got Gina Gorlin and Rebecca Gurn joining me to talk about parenting. I think that'll be a really interesting, fascinating show from an objectivist perspective. Yeah, I mean, is that true, Wanda Friedman, that Entebbe was July 4th, 1976? I think that's right. I was living in Boston at the time. It was during the centenary. But it was in the same date. Huh. All right. Thanks, everybody. Both on Tuesday. I do a show and I go on Sam Seder's show on the same date. Yeah. Thanks, everybody. Thanks for joining me today. Don't forget to like the show, and before you leave, don't forget to share it if you enjoyed it and you'd like other people to experience it. Don't forget to subscribe if you're not a subscriber, and have a fantastic 4th of July. Go see some fireworks. Get some good American food, which I would categorize as beef. Get some good beef. I'm going to get a steak actually probably leaving in a little while. So we're going to a nice steakhouse, getting some beef, and hopefully you guys have a good meal tonight. Celebrate, have fun with friends and family, and I will see you all probably on Tuesday. For sure on Tuesday. I was thinking if I'm doing a show tomorrow, probably not. So I'll see you on Tuesday. Bye, everybody. And thanks for all the super chatters. You guys, amazing today. Amazing today. Thanks for the support.